Welcome to Shift Change. Today on Shift Change, we wanted to talk about some basics that you should know for building up your stash. And one of my favorite things that you did, because your stash, I love you so much, but your stash was terrible.
It was really bad.
It was bad. When we first started dating,
it was really bad.
It was bad. That you used your bad fabric for mock-ups, for patterning. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what I like to do is with that really cheap fabric that you get for $1 or $2 a yard, I like to make mock-ups or patterns out of it, because before you go into a very big project that you're spending $20 a yard for 6 yards of fabric, before you mess it up or cut into this really expensive fabric that you're already hesitant about cutting into, you make a mock-up so that you know for a fact that this garment is going to fit you or the person that you're trying to fit the proper way. It's going to look good on them. It's going to fall properly. You get to work out all the kinks of, okay, do I need to do this type of seam here? Do I need to cut this shorter? Do I need to take this in more? What do I need to do before cutting into your really expensive fabric? And that just makes it look so much more finished and professional at the end.
The next thing that you should know about building your stash is when to spend money. So he sews, but I grew up with a family that sews. My grandmother sews, my mom sews. So even though I don't sew well, I do know a lot about fabric and all of that jazz. And you have to know when it is okay to maybe spend outside of your budget. We have a velvet, it's a beautiful blue velvet, that we spent $3.50 a yard on, which $3.50 a yard was not out of our budget.
Not $350 a yard, just for clarification, $3.50 per yard of velvet.
Right. We didn't need this velvet. We had no project for this velvet. But at $3.50 a yard, when we were getting the other things that we had budgeted for and we got it, because when are you going to find velvet at that price, right? So knowing when to spend that money and when not to spend that money. There are going to be certain projects that you just can't wait forever for, I guess would be the best term. If you see a fabric that you know is going to be amazing and work perfectly for you, and there's no way that you can dye it or hand paint it or hand beat it, there's no way that you can reproduce this and it come out very similar to what this already would look like, that might be something that you have to save up to buy. Versus just buying 20 yards of different colored basic cotton fabric or those terrible quilt prints, and you're not making a quilt. You have no plans to make a quilt, but you're like, it's $1 a yard. Are you going to use that? Great for mock-ups, but are you going to use that in your everyday sewing? The next thing would be thread. So I'll let you talk about this one.
So storage for your thread especially. If you don't have a good storage system for your thread, you end up wasting. And this happens with fabric, it happens with thread, it happens with a lot of those little things. So investing in storage spaces for your things so that it stays nicer, so that you don't run into just waste. Because, I mean, we really don't want to spend extra money where extra money doesn't need
replacing,
to be spent.
Right. I will have to say, as someone who does a lot of hand sewing, for me, spending money on thread is important, at least on the basics. Like if you're working with suede, if you're working with velvet or wool or even a stiffer linen, you're going to want a better quality thread in those basic colors, the colors you'll typically be using, white, tan, gray, black, because it's not going to tangle as much, it's not going to break as much.
It's spending more time, and your time is so valuable.
Your time, especially during these unprecedented times, is so valuable. The next point that we wanted to make is keeping projects that are bad but used a lot of yardage. We've all been beginners. We all had to start somewhere. And you might fondly look back on that beautiful circle skirt you made and think, this is great. In reality, maybe it wasn't great.
No, it wasn't great. It wasn't even a circle skirt. It was just a piece of fabric that I put an elastic waistband in.
There it is.
And sewed it together. It wasn't good, but it was like 7 yards of fabric that I put into a skirt to make it really flowy.
That fabric could be used for lining. Depending on what it was used for, you could possibly use it as an outer layer. And depending on how much you spent on that fabric, it might not be something that you want to give away or just get rid of. So reevaluate your past projects that you know for a fact that you could have done better on. You know that there are exposed edges. You know that you didn't really hide any seam work. You know that this was not your best work. You were just starting out, but reevaluate that and really look at that fabric and go, can I reuse that fabric? Sometimes that bad fabric or even that higher quality fabric that you used earlier on in your sewing days would make a really, really good addition for a lining of a coat or a vest as like a pop of color.
This extends past just fabric though. Buttons, closures, zippers, those are all things that are also things that you'd have to buy. If you can reuse it, reuse it. This also goes with your just everyday clothes. I can't tell you how many shirts that I've been planning on just throwing away and I've used for patterns. I've taken off all the buttons so that I have buttons. I have taken out the stiffeners within collars to put into new collars of things that I'm making. Just being resourceful and using those things, or taking that shirt that you really, really love, but it's time for it to go, and using it as a pattern to create another shirt that you really, really love. I hope that we were able to give you a couple tips and tricks for helping to build up your stash and just some pointers to keep in mind. We appreciate you coming to court, and we hope that you'll subscribe so that you are officially part of our court.
If you like this shift change, just like he said, subscribe for more, and thank you for watching.